Welcome to Around the Track. I'm joined today by my dear friend, Alan Harter, who is the founder and CEO of Pactolus. This is episode 1 for us with Around the Track. So of course, for episode 1, Alan, I wouldn't have anyone else than client number 1 for Dynasty with you. So thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Shirl. It's a pleasure to be here. And certainly, as we both now enter our second decade, it's hard to believe that 10 years have gone by so fast.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Real pleasure.
Thank you. So you know the rules, Alan. We've got 15 minutes, 8 questions. There's 8 furlongs in a mile, like on the track that's here behind me. We're going to run as quickly as we can around the track together with those 8 questions. So the first one is tell us about yourself. Tell us about Pactolus.
Well, as a preface, in the last 10 years, we've never followed the rules collectively, so we'll do our best to stick to them. Pactolus was started, as you know, it's almost contemporaneous to Dynasty. We kind of followed the path together, and it was an incredible journey for those 18 months as we considered all of the things that were going on just post the financial crisis, thinking about how to work with families more effectively, more objectively, and that really was the foundation and genesis in which both of our businesses came together. And it was a real honor for us and for me that we really kind of stepped into the abyss together. And so Pactolus started in January 2011, just after you guys did in December of 2010. And the underlying dynamic for us was really to be a cooperative and collective of families that honestly chose to work together. Our business model is very different. And I know some of the questions that you'll have later will highlight the strengths and weaknesses, and inherent in our business model is both. And the dynamic is such where families are as much selected to be part of this group as we are as a firm chosen to represent them. And it's been a very interesting journey in so much we've learned an incredible amount from very dynamic individuals from all walks of life, heritages, political persuasions. We represent the entire aisle there, in different businesses. And the goal ultimately was to create an environment where families could work together at a family level, philanthropic level, as well as a business level. And it's been incredibly enjoying and fulfilling for me, as well as a hell of a lot of work.
All right, we're out of the gate. So second question, 2020, obviously been an extraordinary year. What do you find that is getting you out of bed early in the morning each morning, specific to the business?
Well, I mean, I think that's a great question. I mean, part of the dynamic is everybody has been able to, I would say, transition into a virtual reality fairly easily based on the technology, the level of communication that existed. Our firm is no different from that. The one thing that I stress with our team, we connect every Tuesday as a team in terms of just going over what's going on, client priorities, et cetera. And the thing that I say to them, we are functionally doing things beautifully. But in this kind of environment, we can't just function, we need to flourish. And what you miss, and we certainly do, is the connectivity. I mean, honestly, when I think about this discussion that we're having right now, we're forced to do this virtually. I would have loved, frankly, to have done it in person. A beautiful day, sit back, have this conversation. Or frankly, I missed our gathering this year. You know, one of the things that I look for, and I travel all of the time, as you know, was just the community and family that is Dynasty and the firms, and all of the great times that we've had. So the thing that's the big challenge is you've got to maintain that level of humanness and connection with your clients. So you don't just end up being another Zoom call that they have to do on a Thursday.
Alan, what 3 words would you say best describe you as a leader and as an entrepreneur?
Well, really, you know, I think about that very succinctly. The 3 words that come to mind when you ask that question, number 1 would be irreverence. And when I think of the context of irreverence, I don't mean it from a standpoint of trying to be the rabble-rouser or the bad boy. I think of it in the context of always thinking outside the box, trying to identify new opportunities, new solutions, and frankly, new ways to work with the families that have very much trusted us with so much. Secondly, perseverance. I think with any entrepreneur, perseverance has to be in your DNA, because where you started and what you hope from day one is most certainly what you will not have 10 years in, 5 years in, 3 years in. And you cannot give up, because the reality is you may be so close to that moment where you break out and just stop because you're tired or you've given up. So being, having a level of perseverance is absolutely critical. And at the same time, the last word I would use to describe is grateful or gratitude. I think part of what you have to have along the way is, frankly, a level of gratitude for the fact that you're given this opportunity. Many people don't have the opportunity to be entrepreneurs, or the circumstances or the confluence of circumstance of life have not allowed them the opportunity. And the gratitude that comes with, assembling a great team and the work that they do, the gratitude that comes from being around incredible people that are your clients or your partners, and the journey that collectively you take together.
Alan, what strengths and weaknesses in yourself and your team do you feel have been really highlighted over the last 12 months or so, given this very extraordinary time that we find ourselves in?
That particular question, is something that I've asked myself quite a bit, and I highlight it when thinking about it in the context of in discussions with the team. I like to say that our biggest weaknesses are our biggest strengths, and sometimes our biggest strengths are our biggest weaknesses. And for us, we were a small family. We're not a huge practice in terms of headcount. And so we were an organization that had a lot of organizational intimacy, where we depended on the connectivity that came from just seeing each other every day, having those, informal meetings, communications. And because of COVID and having to default to this remote posture, one of the things that I fear is we're losing some of the cultural identity that made us so strong in the last couple of years. And so for us, it's something that we've had to work at. Obviously, the environment may be such where we don't have any control of this. We may have this posture for the next 6 to 9 months. And so it's both a strength and a weakness, in the sense that our, the cultural strength that we had of working together so closely has now become our weakness, because I find there is a level of disconnection that comes from remote work. People's attention is sometimes not there. You're easily distracted. Or quite frankly, you start to lose some of the vigor that you had for the role, and just trying to stay excited.
Alan, what would you say the biggest issue is facing our industry right now?
It's probably the answer you wouldn't expect. I think one thing that I, at least the perspective I look at, is given the dynamic that we're seeing with the whole world kind of being relegated to a remote posture, the overemphasis, and at one level, the dependence on technology to drive scalability, we risk losing the humanness that has historically driven our business. And I look at, people getting disconnected because they're relying on Zoom or these meetings. And then, my concern is the world really doesn't ever get back to that state of normalcy where human interaction and relationships are the foundation of long-term business relationships.
Alan, over the last 10 years, as you've made this transition from advisor to CEO, could you describe maybe a large failure and or success that maybe our listeners could learn from?
Well, at a success level, the emphasis that we as a business have placed on very, very specific relationships and how we've brought families together. And the dynamic of them working together has so far exceeded our expectations. But at the same time, again, our biggest strength is also our biggest weakness. In order to create that level of intimacy and cooperation, it inherently is unscalable. And trying to replicate that into a situation where you have 30 global families that you've created incredible ties between, a level of operability in which we, collaborate, speak on a regular basis. Deal flow flows back and forth. Philanthropic actions are abundant. The impacts to communities are great. But at the same time, those families have enjoyed a level of success, both from just new relationships, investment opportunities, that they're very hesitant to bring others in. And it's what I call the babysitting principle, that you find yourself with an incredible babysitter. The one thing that you never do is refer the babysitter. So I have 30 families that are incredibly happy with their affiliation with Pactolus, but very hesitant to bring anybody else in because they don't want to dilute the experience that they have enjoyed.
All right, Alan, we're turning for home here. Hopefully you're not too tired.
We're limping home.
You're doing great. What is it that you would like your clients to feel about you?
Uh, Ultimately, the thing that we want the most is we want the clients to have a level of trust and faith in our organization, in the sense that they know that we will always do what's in their best interest. And at any time, that often, in the past, has often meant putting us, far down the chain. And whether it's in a situation of a business opportunity, a financial structure, I think the one thing that I believe is our clients, and we've been rewarded with their incredible loyalty, that they trust us implicitly and know that we will always do our best for them. We're not perfect, but we will always do our best.
Alan, some of the top horses in the history of American racing have trained on this track here in Saratoga Springs behind me. Many of the horses that were out here this morning are training for next year's Kentucky Derby. Their team's getting ready. They're getting all the preparations in place. I'd like to ask you, as the last question, Alan, what is your Kentucky Derby? What are you and your team really working towards as a significant goal over the next 12 months or so?
Really, when I look at that, the focus of the business historically has been, how well we've been able to collaborate with families, creating investment opportunities. And now that we're crossing kind of the 10-year Rubicon on many of those investment verticals, the results have been well above our expectations. But the dynamic has been such where it's been very intimate in terms of the participants. The goal of the business has always been to be able to grow and scale the investment platform beyond these families, where these families will continue to be an integral part of it, but ultimately now using the networks, the resources, and incredible skill these families have brought to these investments over the last 10 years to bring them to a much larger audience, where I feel that, frankly, there is a lot of value that these families can bring to the table, but also from a business perspective, can completely change the trajectory that we've had and bring a lot more people involved. And so for us, it's an incredible opportunity. And independent of the market environment, we really look forward to seeing what we can do now that we've really very thoughtfully incubated the Pactolus investment platform for the last 10 years.
Alan, thanks so much for being with us here on Around the Track. There's no one that I would have rather have done show number one with than client number one. So thank you again so much for being here with us.
It was a good time. I appreciate it. Lots of fun.